Good morning to you. It's Daybreak here at iFiber One News Radio. I'm Jeff Slakey, and it's time for us to learn a little bit about the environment around this area. Great area to look into the environment. And from the Salmon Center, Clayton David's on the air. Been a little while. Say good morning to you.
Good morning, Jeff. Good morning, everybody.
Thanks for coming on the air here. Talk about some great things that the Salmon Center is up to. They got a new effort for forage fish research. Tell me about that.
Yeah, so forage fish is maybe a little bit of a misnomer. A lot of people think of, when they hear the word forage fish, they think of fish that actually are eating. And these are actually a type of fish that fish eat. So like our salmon and our other mammalian animals around the Puget Sound and Hood Canal eat things like sand lance, surf smelt, anchovies, and things like that. And that's why they're called forage fish as a group, because they actually feed the upper parts of the food chain.
Oh, isn't that? Yeah, the first thing I would think of would be fish that either scuttle around the ground and trying to find things, foraging for food.
Yeah, no, so it's a little bit of a misnomer, but these are actually the fish that feed our salmon, basically.
Well, that's a good outreach then, I guess, you're having to kind of change the mindset on folks on that one. So, salmon, of course, is a big thing. You guys saw record salmon coming in during the chum counts this summer.
Mm-hmm.
How are salmon, you kind of briefly touched on it, but
Sure.
how kind of are these connected here with salmon in the area?
Well, they're definitely connected through the food chain. I mean, this is how our salmon get big right before they get back into the streams when they're coming back. Not to mention that's also how the juveniles will feed before they leave the Puget Sound to go off to become adults.
Mm-hmm.
The forage fish is the key dietary ingredient for making our salmon a healthy runs and things like that. So,
is there anything that you are seeing in any trends where the forage fish numbers may be on the decline, and that could impact the salmon population?
Well, that's exactly why we're doing this program. Washington Department of Fish and Wildlife has been surveying forage fish throughout the Puget Sound for many, many years. They, due to staffing limitations and stuff like that, aren't able to get to all the coastlines, and so that's why we're starting this program, is to help out surveying Hood Canal in order to assess the abundance of spawning that is occurring within Hood Canal of forage fish, so we can kind of get a better idea of how their populations are doing, the timing that they're spawning, when and where they spawn, and things like that. So,
are there when a salmon is ready to head out to the oceans and before they come back, what's the timeline on that? How long is that usually?
Definitely depends on the species, but so for Chinook salmon, that can be they're going to head out into the open ocean within the first couple of years of their life, and then they will return after 5 or 6 years.
Okay.
Things like chum and pink salmon as well. Pink are every 2 years. Chum are every 3 to 4 years. Coho again 3 to 4 years. So it depends on the species. But
I was kind of where I was going with that as a question is, are there things and things that are being done now that you'll have to wait for? For 2 years, I guess, before some of the chum return, of the pinks return, so you are able to see some of the efforts that you guys have been doing.
Yeah, so we definitely have our monitoring programs will monitor the return of the salmon to say like the Union River. That's our particular program with the summer chum salmon.
Yeah.
So we'll monitor that every year, and hopefully we'll be able to see a correlation between forage fish numbers in Hood Canal and the numbers of salmon returning to our rivers. So it's a cooperative effort between Fish and Wildlife, other nonprofits like Long Live the Kings, the Skokomish tribe, other tribes too, as well as us. And so hopefully by getting a picture of how well the forage fish abundance is doing in Hood Canal, we can also see if there's any correlation between that and the salmon returns every year. I will tell you that within recent years, forage fish numbers have dropped very drastically off really low, in fact. And so that's why this effort is very important for really getting a picture of how well salmon are doing in not only Hood Canal, but all of Puget Sound.
Was there a kind of a break point where you started to notice some things where this had to really become implemented, or you just saw a slow decline over the years? So
yes and no. There has been a slow decline over the years, but over the last decade or so, that decline has become pretty drastic. There are a number of theories out there of why that could be occurring. Ocean conditions. We have that Pacific Decadal Oscillation that just turned over again, so now we're going to start getting a lot more warm water into the Puget Sound rather than the cold water upwelling that we normally see. That'll have a big effect on the forage fish as well, and then that'll cascade throughout the food chain. So there's a number of theories out there of why they're declining. Besides water temperatures and conditions, we have pollution elements and things like that are all, and fish passage blockages. We have larger mammalian creatures like seals and things like that are actually changing some of their feeding regimes due to low forage fish numbers. They're starting to feed more on like out-migrating steelhead and salmon and things like that. So forage fish is something we really need to understand and make sure we can protect those populations.
Yeah, that was one of the other things I was just thinking of is the water. The warming trends in the oceans are causing some of these larger animals to move up the coast too. Some we would traditionally see lounging about at Fisherman's Wharf in San Francisco may now be lounging about here in the Great Northwest.
Yeah, definitely. A lot of species are starting to move north for sure, especially with warmer waters and things like that. And it's a big time of change right now, and we have to stay on top of it to make sure we protect what's important to us culturally, economically, and socially throughout Washington and the Puget Sound.
Well, one of the ways to keep on it is to get a lot of good eyes on it. So I'm sure you could use some volunteers to help out with some efforts.
Yeah, so let me explain the program a little bit. So this is a largely volunteer-led program. We have, right now, we are trying to sample a minimum of 20 sites per month, which basically means that a couple of volunteers will go out to a beach that I've located and designated as a forage fish spawning beach that we're gonna survey. And they'll stretch out a tape measure 100 feet, and they'll take some beach gravel samples and put them in a bag. At that point, they're done at that site, and they take some other notes and things like that. But at that point, they're done at that site, and then they will return to the Salmon Center, where we have a winnowing station set up. They'll take their big bag of gravel, put it through a process that basically winnows it down to just the smallest, minutest material in that sample, and then that sample will be looked at underneath a microscope by volunteers. And they can identify. We have a way of teaching everybody,
Sure.
Identify and categorize the forage fish eggs if they find any within that sample.
Wow,
yeah. And then
that's real hands-on.
It is real hands-on, and the volunteer. That's the reason why we're so excited about this program is that volunteers are easily able to do this. And we have a small group right now that's been doing the surveys for the last couple months. I'm always wanting to bring on more volunteers though and get them trained up to do these surveys. If anybody is interested, they could always give us a call at the Salmon Center in Belfair. Specifically, you'd probably call Seth Elson, who is our volunteer coordinator, project coordinator, or they can get in touch with us through our website at PNW, that's Pacific Northwest, salmoncenter.org. And all of our volunteer opportunities and more information about all of our projects are on the website as well.
Cool. So I'll put the links to that in the notes and Seth's number up there, 360-275-3575. He's at extension 112.
You got it.
Well, very cool. That sounds like a wonderful new program for folks to get really hands-on information on this forage fish research project. Very cool. Well, Clayton, good to see you in here again, and happy holidays, Merry Christmas, and I guess we'll see you before too long. And good work up there.
Thank you very much, Jeff. I really appreciate you having me come in today, and happy holidays to all your listeners.